It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name's Sammy James. Welcome to the show. Today, it is the season preview. 24-25 is just around the corner, and Fulham kick things off against Manchester United on Friday at Old Trafford. Today, we will look at the season as a whole. How will Fulham fare? And of course, as ever, it is our famous predictions. Enough to make us look silly. Come May.
Famous is such a choice of word there, isn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't exactly sure how to describe it. I'm joined by Jack Collins. Hello.
Hello, Sammy. How you doing?
Good, thank you. And Peter Rutzler. Hello.
Hello. This is nice.
We've had a little bit of logistics problems. We were going to record at the Crabtree. Myself and Jack mentioned that, and then the Crabtree weren't allowing us to film there, so we've made a few calls and we've ended up at the Half Moon Inn in Putney, which is a lovely little gaff. So I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, I'm worried about the kind of like we've done it at the Crabtree 2 years, stayed up both years, and so I'm worried about the omens of leaving. But if you could pick anywhere to be on a glorious sunny day like this, Half Moon does a job.
I missed the memo on the Fulham shirts, but did you wear them last time as well?
No, and this was complete accident that we've managed to wear the same year's kits, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm wearing the white GMB kit from the 90s. Jack's wearing the red and black. I'm just glad that we didn't plan this, but at least we went different, like home and away.
Absolutely.
Which is very fortunate. Peter, we haven't heard from you all summer. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's been a busy summer, but been keeping well. I always look forward to when the season comes back around. The Euros is always fun. Transfers are a pain, so football is that's what it's all about, right? So, and when the weather's like this and you start, that's what it's all about, right? So, all good.
And are you still kind of biding your time at the Athletic between PSG and Fulham? Is that the case for the new season as well?
This season I'll be doing a bit more general overall, so there'll be more varied stuff from me. So it'll be a mix. There'll be some Fulham, not as much Fulham as I've done in the past. There'll be some PSG when PSG are interesting, and other bits as well. So I'll still be around. I'll still go down to the cottage, but I won't be there for every game. Yeah,
fair enough. I mean, look, if you're still in and around, and Fulham will always try and keep you busy.
They do, yeah, they do. And I can't stay away, so that's part of the problem.
Just as long as you're definitely working Fulham on transfer deadline day. There's no other club you can work for on transfer deadline day.
Deadline day is that's booked out. It's not the eve of my birthday this year either, so. Can go all out, no problems at all.
Stay up till 6 in the morning.
Let's do it.
Mr. Versatile. The Athletic's answer to Bobby De Cordova-Reid, it seems.
Oh. The Athletic's most versed person in a deal sheet.
yeah, probably. No, but it's I'll be at the game on Friday, so I'm looking forward to that. It should be really good, and it's nice that it's the opening game of the season as well, isn't it? It's shines the light a bit more on the team, doesn't it?
So, I mean, Jack, before we kind of get into the season preview, let's just have a bit of a catch-up on some of the latest transfer rumours.
Yeah.
And the latest one is a centre-back. It seems that Fulham are going all out to find this right-sided centre-back. Now, I'd say that about 1% of people on the podcast tend to get in touch generally. 100% of people that listen to the podcast got in touch to say that Joachim Andersen is right-footed after my mistake on Sunday's podcast. I'm sorry, everyone. I thought he was left-footed. I've made a big mistake.
You've made that reference twice because you said it last week as well. You were like, do we need any more left-sided centre-backs? And I was like, pretty sure Joachim Andersen plays on the right at Palace. Like
he was left
sure.
for us.
He was, yeah.
So I just, and I only think about Fulham. So
fair enough.
He's never played anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this is an interesting rumour. Obviously, Fulham have made a £20 million bid. That seems to be pretty official that we've done that. Palace wants a lot higher. Were you surprised to see this one resurface? It seems to be the season of just Fulham trying to get the band back together.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised when it came through as, not just, Fulham are interested, but Fulham have made a bid kind of out of nowhere. But I'm not surprised in terms of what are Fulham looking for here in a centre-back. Do I think that Joachim Andersen is the best that money could buy at that price? No. But in terms of bringing someone in who feels comfortable, in terms of bringing in someone in who knows the club and what it's about and trying to kind of fit back in, especially with the season obviously on the verge of starting already, I can see why they're trying to do that and, maintain that experience. Fulham have lost. We spoke about making the squad younger, and I still think it's a very good thing that we've done that. But also you look at the core and the experience and the leadership that Fulham have lost this summer, and you start to think, okay, who's going to take up that mantle in the dressing room? Who are going to be the leadership group this year? You'd imagine if Joachim Andersen comes back in, someone who has captained Fulham in the past, he's coming back in to be part of that leadership group and help to just secure this side. There's a lot of fun, I think, in the changing room, and you have to kind of balance that. When we've seen all of the videos of Iwobi and Bassi seemingly having the best time ever and making everyone else have the best time ever as well on pre-season tour, there is a level of that. You'd be like, obviously you need the jokers in the pack, the people that can lift spirits, the people who are doing that. You also need those people, like I think Tim Ream was, and probably Polina to an extent, where they're kind of in the dressing room, 10 minutes before the match, and they're like, right, heads on, like just that kind of sense of, okay, well, it's business time now, let's get down to it. I think Joachim Andersen probably fulfills that mould, and that's why he's interesting in terms of a player that Fulham are looking at. I wonder if Fulham meet them halfway. There's a talk Palace wanting 40 million. I cannot see Fulham spending that on Joachim Andersen, but 30 perhaps. And I think that it's interesting to see where they're going with it. I think it'll be a good signing, and I think the fact that negotiations are ongoing suggests that Fulham have had some sort of indication from his camp that he would be maybe open to the idea of coming back to Craven Cottage.
We've definitely lost the serious people, haven't we? Tim Ream, João Palhinha, like players who were definitely sort
Bobby
of teased.
as well, I
Bobby.
think.
Yeah. Bobby, well, to be fair, so there is a real dearth of serious people. I don't know, would Joachim Andersen fit that? Maybe.
I think he's quite comes across as a kind of well put together human being, right? And I think that the fact he's worn the armband on numerous occasions suggests that there is that sense of leadership and quiet leadership about Joachim Andersen, and that's, I think, something that maybe this dressing room just lacks.
Tosin's
right
a
now.
serious guy as well, actually.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lack of that, maybe. Yeah, it's but it's interesting, and I think with a player like Andersen, and Diego Carlos is the other one that Fulham have been looking at. Experienced players and mitigating risks. Like that's just been what Fulham have done since they've come back to the Premier League, right? Players that either Marco Silva knows really well or have experience in the Premier League. Having a player like, Joachim Andersen, who's played for Fulham, lives in London still, limited risk of that going wrong.
Agreed, yeah.
And even with like Cesc coming back, that's again, yes, there's the injury element, but he's familiar with the environment. There's not going to be any question about that. So I can see why Andersen would fit that bill, and it's obvious stylistically what Fulham really want from their centre-back and what they really need and what they're missing since Tosin's gone.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, I'm just a little bit worried that us spending 30 million on a centre-back, and we do need a centre-back, but what I still think we really need is a defensive midfielder. The Andre links have come and gone and come and gone and come and gone all summer. Have Fulham got money to spend big on both a defender and a defensive midfielder? Because they're clearly the two positions we need. I mean, many would argue we also need a striker, or we might need another option in the middle. But I really think that those two positions are absolutely key. And I mean, maybe it is a sign of intent that Fulham do have this money to spend.
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to consider that obviously they've spent, it's worth 34 million, but 27 million on Emil Smith Rowe, which I think we've reported is structured over 4 years. I think, yeah, in terms of can Fulham do it, yes. I think with these kind of deals, you've really got to get it right, and it comes back to mitigating the risks. We've seen the way Fulham sort of negotiate, and that's kind of reflective of where they are as a team. You're not like a top level club, top four team where you have your target and you're just going to stick to that all summer.
Yeah.
Fulham will have a range of targets. There'll be one that they really, really want, but it's probably a bit outlandish and they may not get them, and then suddenly they might open up towards the end of the window. So I think that's where we're at, and I can see both positions probably being in that mould. We've seen it before, just based on what's happened before. Obviously the Andre link, Fulham have been tracking him for nearly 2 years. That's been really well documented. They've clearly done the background on that. They had their first bid. Fluminense want more money. They haven't come back, as far as I'm aware. And then there's also Scott McTominay. And I think what's interesting with that is that they're very different. They're really different profiles.
Completely different players.
And it wouldn't surprise me, considering what's happened before, if if say the holding midfielder is also linked to what profile of centre back they get as well.
Yeah.
If we're talking about build up, play from the back, so what kind of player are you getting? You're getting a Joachim Andersen, then maybe you don't need your 6 to be as important in terms of dominating the ball. If they go for someone who's a bit more solid, more Issa Diop maybe, then you probably want someone who can really start dictating the play. We'll find out a bit more when we see Marco Silva. I think his press conference is Wednesday this week, just to see what the thinking is. But a lot of the time we always like to think of transfers as player for position, but particularly with Silva, it's players in the system, how they complement each other. I think we saw that last year in terms of the profile of wingers they got in. I think when they signed Adama Traore, that changed what Fulham wanted to do. I think there was a lot of talk about Campos and I can't remember who the other one was. But that whole thing changed when you have someone like that in, because you don't want players that do the same thing. Sometimes you want different things, and you want them to maybe on the left to be different to the right. So I listen, we'll see what happens. I think for me, both positions are absolutely vital. We saw that Reed and Lukic did a good job in the 6, like that 6-8 link up, and that was a stopgap. I think that would change depending on opponent. There'll be some games where you want more creative players in there, and you'll need that solidity from someone else. So yeah, I'm with you. They're really important positions, and I think it's one that they have to get right. If you're going to spend that kind of money, like with Smith Rowe, you feel quite confident about that.
Yeah.
You can see why they've done it. Yes, there's always a risk. He's had his fitness problems before, but you want to get that right with that kind of investment.
You can take a gamble in that position a little bit more, in terms of if you're spending that kind of money, you're looking at a marquee player who might have a massively high ceiling. I think you're less kind of risky in terms of what you're looking for in a defensive midfielder and a centre-back. You kind of want to mitigate, as Peter rightly points out, the idea that could go wrong. Fulham can't afford another Alfie Mawson. They can afford Smith Rowe to be okay. He doesn't have to be world class for this to be okay. That's probably a transfer that at least makes its money back. But when you're looking at a player in the 6 or at the defensive midfield role or at centre back, I think you need that player to be good if you're going to spend that kind of money. And then that's why it's a slightly more difficult position to fill, I think, than a winger or a striker, where actually they kind of come and go a little bit more. This is someone who's coming in to kind of be that heartbeat of the team in the same way that Polina was for so many years.
I was feeling really positive and great today, and then you brought up Alfie Mawson, and I just kind of had traumatic memories of maybe one of Fulham's worst ever
Maybe we just need someone to come and take free kicks,
Yeah, oh my God. I mean, Peter, what's been your view of the summer as a whole? Obviously, you kind of mentioned the signings of Smith Rowe, and there's been a lot of outgoings as well, like Polina leaving the club. I guess nothing's been hugely shocking, but overall I'm feeling fairly positive about Fulham's business. It's a massive blow to lose Polina, and I think that when we see the raft of predictions come out this week from anyone who's anyone, I imagine that some people will have Fulham struggling because they'll just associate Polina leaving, Fulham will struggle. But I don't know, I'm feeling positive. I feel like lots of Fulham fans are feeling positive. Do you think that's misplaced optimism, or?
I think some of that comes from the atmosphere in the camp, right? You've had a sense of that from what the club have put out, and there's a really good spirit within the group. So you feel like everyone's in the right place. We've had summers where Marco Silva's come out and been very unhappy. I think the start of the summer was a bit nerve-wracking, a bit uneasy, because Fulham were quite slow to make their first moves. I think only Liverpool signed. They haven't signed anyone.
They haven't signed anyone. Yeah.
So there was that, and I think that was becoming a bit nervous, because, as you say, like the changes Fulham have made this summer, the players who've gone are big, not just in terms of numbers but influence. And Bobby Decordova-Reid, Tim Ream, Tosin Adebayo, João Polina, hugely influential players. Willian. Not sure what's happening with him actually. He's free agent at the moment, but hasn't got anywhere yet.
Sorting his own deal out.
Well, we'll have to see what happens with him. But they're all key to what Fulham have done the last couple of years. Influential off the field, on the field. So that's always a big transition. And Jack's right, that Fulham have had to lower the average age of the squad. I mean, we talked about that a lot. I remember doing a piece in January time saying, like, this is a this is going to happen. So sometimes you just kind of have to bite the bullet. But it's a difficult transition. You know, if you go too young with too many young, inexperienced players, you can fall off.
Southampton, famously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we've seen with Fulham's success has always been about, like we said, experienced players. Like, it's a USP. Like, I mean, the big clubs at the moment, they're all signing young players and under 23, 24, 25. No one's really going for that, apart from West Ham, and it's worked for West Ham for quite some time. And I think if you can do it right economically in the finances, you know, yes, they're going to command some big wages, but you can get some players who aren't playing, want to be playing because they're in the peak of their in the Premier League. That's a unique angle to have, and to be like, look, we've done this with all these players and made them better and
the
play their best
absolute
football.
antithesis of our neighbours up the road.
Well, yeah, in a way, yeah.
Then we just don't sign simply 13-year-olds.
Yeah, we also have a squad of less.
Never got 19 goalkeepers yet.
And but yeah, and there's a balance, right? You can't build your squad on aging players, because Fulham, they have to buy and sell. So that's the angle that Fulham have got to try and have been improving on, to be fair, considering the sales they've made.
The average age has come down though, generally, of the squad.
It has, yeah. This summer alone is a big one. I mean, if you take Willian and Ream and Palhinha is coming up to 29.
That's 100 years between them.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, that's a big thing. So I think once Sessegnon was a good signing in that. Yes, we could see that Fulham needed some cover on the left, both in an advanced role, which of course he did so well when he burst through, but also a fullback can do both. Works very nicely. Loads of feel-good factor instantly.
Free agent.
Yeah. Emil Smith-Rowe, universally seen as a really good signing. Everyone's excited about what he can do. Club record transfer. Like, that's, again, feel-good factor. Yes, they're the two key positions that need to solve, and I'm sure they will. There will be something before the summer is out. But then you look at the performances. Performances have been encouraging. So yeah, it does feel pretty good. It doesn't feel like there's a frantic sense of, like last summer it was like, okay, Mitrovic is gone, need to do something. There isn't. Yes, there is that with Palhinha, but it doesn't feel as acute.
Oh yeah, the difference between our feelings on this podcast this time last year and where we are now, I mean, maybe we're dangerously tiptoeing into...
Mitrovic was still here at this point last season.
Yeah, but
it's important to remember that.
Yeah, but
we had to do a best top scorer without Mitrovic because we weren't sure if he was staying or not.
But I don't know, it does feel like we're all a lot more positive than we were this time last year. And last year ended up being all right in the end. So, you know, fingers crossed. I mean, looking at this season as a whole, Jack, you know, we talked about the fixture list when it came out. The start feels like a blessing and a curse, because, like, if you look, for instance, at like the Fantasy Premier League fixtures, Fulham have one of the nicest starts in the Premier League. We don't face big odds apart from Man United, and even then, there's a question mark. It's a nice start. I mean, Jack Kelly last week, he did his hot take that he thinks Fulham will be unbeaten until City in October, which is a hot take.
Yeah, it's a scorcher.
It's a spicy take. But actually, you look at those fixtures and there's some merit to his point. Like, there are winnable games here. And love it, because if Fulham do take advantage, then I think if we did somehow like not lose a game until City, I think we'd be really comfortable. In both seasons, that's been really important, has been the fast start.
Yeah.
But
if we don't and we start this season badly, then suddenly you're like, oh, we could be in real trouble. So, yes, I agree. I mean, I don't think there's much loads you can add on it until we see what Fulham look like in these first few games. The opener's a bit of a weird one because Manchester United are, I think, contractually obliged to win their first game through hook or crook. Like, remember what happened last year when that opener against Wolves, where Andre Onana punched someone in the head, there was no penalty given, and then Rafael Varane scored a sort of questionable late winner. It was a bit like, oh, the Sky cameras are there. United have to win their opener. We know what the people want. So that does worry me a bit. But hey, look, this is the game that we had when we returned to the Premier League in 2001, when we joined the Premier League in 2001, and we made a fast start in that game, and obviously it didn't go to plan, but that season went okay, so fingers crossed we can deliver something similar here.
As long as it's better than the other season opener we've had at Old Trafford, which I believe might have been 06-07 or was 05-06, and we were 4-0 down at half-time, lost 5-1. That was a particularly painful.
That was bad.
I think maybe Ruud van Nistelrooy might have scored loads.
I've written that one out of my head, I think.
I remember that one being particularly... There's nothing worse than that on the opening day of the season as well, just to make you feel thoroughly miserable about what you've got to experience for the next 37 games. I think that this game against United will be, Peter, whether we win or lose or draw, I honestly don't know. I feel like it's a really tough game to call, but I think it will be super competitive. I think it'll be a really exciting game. I think Sky have picked this one well as the first match of the season, because I think United will be expected to win. They should win. They still have far superior players and talents to Fulham, but I think Fulham will go there and give them a game. I hope, anyway. That's what I'm expecting it to be lots of chances both ways.
It's Man United, right? And Man United have been so up and down. I mean, you could get anything with them. So there's always a chance that Man United suddenly turn up and then everyone goes, oh my God, Erik ten Hag is getting a tune out of these players. I don't know if that's going to happen, but let's see. I mean, Fulham have made these trips to Old Trafford in the last couple of seasons very interesting, swing both ways quite dramatically.
One way or the other. Yeah.
So TV-wise, perfect sense, right? So look forward to it.
Your trips to Old Trafford, you've literally seen a bit of everything really in the last few years. I mean, Jack, obviously, like the hoodoo was broken last year, and I think that makes us all feel a lot better. Imagine if that game had ended 1-1, by the way, like it very much could have, and we'd be going into this full of dread. Obviously, Alex Iwobi's goal kind of just completely banished so many demons recently from going to Old Trafford. And the thing about that 2-1 game is, although it was a last-minute winner, and that's what we
dominated it.
Record books say it should have been 4 or 5-0.
Yeah.
We absolutely battered them, and we had the best of it, and we also had the best of them at Craven Cottage. We've generally, in nearly all games, played better than Manchester United.
Yeah, sadly that doesn't always determine how things pan out, right? And if we're going to talk about United, I thought they were actually much improved in their game at the weekend against City in the Community Shield. I thought they were the better side. Yes, it was a relatively youthful City 11, but considering the way that United played out and the way that they look like they're going to play, they've signed, well, by the looks of it, Matthias de Ligt and Nusam Masraoui today to add to that squad. Zirkzee might be back now in terms of getting a go. I don't think he'll start. I don't think they're going to randomly chuck in a striker they signed this summer to start in a game like this, but could be an option.
It's quite bold that they'll probably start de Ligt.
I think they probably will, yeah.
I mean, like, he's going to have, 3 days?
He's worked under Ten Hag before that, hasn't he? I mean, this is a kind of a common thread.
But also, that's something that Fulham should be looking at, right? It's like, right, Rodrigo, get up and get at him. You know, like, how much football has he played this summer? Not very much. He hasn't featured in all that many Bayern games because they've been on the verge of selling him for the last 3-4 weeks. Like, he hasn't played all that much football. He didn't play all that much at the Euros. And he didn't play that much last season for Bayern. Like, he hasn't had regular football for a while now. If he gets thrown into this game, you go, Rodrigo, just make him uncomfortable for the first things. And, you know, that's a lot of pressure. Old Trafford debut, it's a big stadium. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot of expectation. If you can start to put that on him, then there's always a chance that you can get one over, I think, at that kind of point.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of eyeballs. It's the...
People melt.
Yeah,
people
exactly,
melt in the theatre.
Yeah, I just can't believe... But, I mean, they have to do it, Peter, because they're so depleted. I mean, the injuries that they picked up on that tour of America... I was almost starting to feel sorry for them. What
on earth is wrong with their medical staff? Like, we compliment Fulham regularly about the fact that we have, touch wood, stayed away from major injuries for long periods of the last couple of seasons, and that's due to, like, the medical staff being, you know, on point, doing their jobs very, very well. And you get to United and you're like, what are you doing? Like, what are these doctors and the people setting up the warm-ups? And is no one thinking about this? Because a couple of times you're like, that's bad luck. I think at this point, I'm well past it being bad luck. I think it's bad preparation. I
mean, obviously, they signed Lenny Yoro, which was their big kind of summer signing. They splashed out huge money on him, 18-year-old, and he goes on that tour of America, and he crooks himself. Rasmus Højlund is out. I think Johnny Evans, Lindelof, and, well, Wan-Bissaka injured himself. Wan-Bissaka's gone.
Yeah, he has left.
But it was a really chaotic summer. But then, yeah, Peter, I watched them a little bit on Saturday. I had 3 games on the go on Saturday. I was trying to watch the Community Shield. I was trying to watch the Olympic gold medal match, which was US-Brazil for work. And then I was also trying to keep an eye on Fulham-Hoffenheim. Triple screen is hard. Jack, I know you're well experienced, but I'm not.
Master of the art, yeah.
Yeah. But I thought that what I did see of that, and I must admit, the Community Shield was a distant third of my priorities in that. But what I just did see is, like, yes, City dominated the ball, but when United got it, they just looked really clean and effective, and they actually had some really nice moves. They should have been a couple of goals up because they just looked. But then again, United also looked good in the FA Cup final against Manchester City. Is it a case of actually this is a team that maybe likes it when they're against a big boy like Manchester City and they don't have to have too much of the ball, and actually Fulham will probably not have as much possession as Manchester City, and is that this a moment where actually we can capitalise on them potentially being worse against weaker teams?
Yeah, I think you've answered your own question there. That's exactly it. That's been Man United under Erik ten Hag. They can play very well against big teams that come at them because they're good in transition, and the problem is you can't really be that kind of team as Manchester United. You have to be able to play both ways, and they've struggled to do that. I think Fulham, the game last year, Fulham were cutting through them so easily, the massive spaces in midfield. That's what I'll be looking at, and I'm sure Fulham will be looking to try and exploit again. Fulham will have Iwobi, Pereira, Smith Rowe operating in those areas potentially. These are very good technical players, good in space. And if United offer that kind of space again, and they haven't really taken that step forward again, then they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, Adama as well. Obviously we've seen Pereira play deep in the
What
friendly.
did you think of it?
What, Pereira deep? His work rate is exceptional. I don't think he covers the space all that well. And I think it opens us up to being exploited in those areas. And that is actually the one thing you really don't want with United. Now, obviously, in this game last year, Polina didn't play.
Yes.
It's a point worth considering. But Lukic and Reed were excellent in there. I'd be surprised if he doesn't go with that again and push Pereira forward, but I don't know who that leaves out because Adama's been excellent in pre-season, so it's interesting seeing what he does there, but I can see him utilising that at times this season in games where Fulham are ball dominant, and perhaps if there does come through the door a more kind of all action, cover the bases 6. There were times last season where Fulham, obviously Marco Silva is pretty wedded to the 4-2-3-1, but at times it looked like a 4-1-4-1 at times. So when you kind of tuck that in, you're like, okay, there might be bits of this season where Pereira does play there, but I can't see it in a game like this.
Yeah. The only thing, though, is wouldn't you, if you were going to use Lukic and Reed, wouldn't you play that against Hoffenheim?
Well, yeah, maybe.
Maybe springing a surprise? I don't know. That's the only thing I can't really remember exactly what Marco's form is for the final pre-season match and whether it exactly replicates the lineup on the first game, but that's my only. I wouldn't be surprised, Peter, if he does actually go with almost exactly who he picked against Hoffenheim.
Yeah, there may have been an element of waiting to see what United look like in the Community Shield and making a judgment from there as well. We're probably in a similar boat and think, well, how do we counteract that? I don't know with Pereira in that position. We've seen him. We
made it for Flamengo, didn't he?
He did, and he can do it, and he does it well. Where we've talked about Pereira's value as being in the first line of pressure, was off the ball stuff. You won't really do that in that system. Otherwise, there's a lot of ground to cover if you're playing deeper. So, yeah, and I think that would change depending on who Fulham sort of recruit as well.
All right, well, we'll take a break. Afterwards, we'll get into some pre-season predictions. Part 2 of the Fulhamish podcast. It's Sammy here. I was going to say on the Thursday Club with Jack and Peter, but we're definitely not releasing this on a Thursday. A little bit earlier because Fulham are in the first game of the season on Friday, hopefully giving you plenty of time to either watch or listen to this. We are putting up all our Thursday Clubs this season on YouTube, so if that's your thing, if you like to watch your podcasts, then head over to the Fulhamish YouTube channel and you can see all of our smiling faces there. Mine and Jack's GMB retro tops.
Yep.
In the flesh for you. Peter's not in a retro top today. We forgot to give him the memo.
No memo, just a grey shirt. Yeah.
It's looking great though. Looking great.
It's like a shirt based on last season's third kit.
Yeah, there we go.
That's what you went for. Let's do some pre-season predictions. I said famous at the top of the podcast. Infamous is probably a better word.
Troublesome.
I love this part of the show because it's just a chance to be silly, isn't it? Pre-season predictions. Ultimately, no one's got a clue. If you did, then you could become a very rich man or woman. But we will go through them and we'll get some explanations as to why. The first one we always start with Fulham's final position. Peter, would you like to get things underway?
Very different to last year, because last year we were hovering around the relegation. I've gone for 11th.
Ooh.
Yeah. I feel like the Fulham have got a good team. It's a good team, and good coach, positive atmosphere. I look at some of the other teams in the league. Yes, I think it's going to be tighter in the bottom half of the table. I think the teams coming up are not going to be I'm just not going to be pushovers like last year. That said, it'll be interesting to see what my relegated three are. But in terms of those teams, I mean, you can start picking through them. You go from Forest or Brentford, and you obviously got the newly promoted teams and Wolves, Everton. Suddenly you have a lot of teams that you think Fulham are better than. I think Fulham are in a good place. And part of that is predicated on them signing a midfielder and a centre-back.
Yes, but you are that, I think.
But I think they should do that, and recent history suggests they signed pretty well. So, 11th.
Jack?
14th.
Okay.
I am infamously negative about this most of the time.
And that's a reasonable thing to do.
I think 14th is probably about right. And I think that whilst I agree with Peter on quite a lot of that I'm a little bit concerned that a couple of those teams who, were in and around it last year, Everton's, for example, and I don't think Everton have got much better, but I can see them just being solid again. And you're kind of looking at it and going, well, have they got much worse? No. And actually, would they have finished above us if they hadn't had points deductions? Yes. So you then get to those kind of points, you're like, everyone else seems quite in the mix as well. So I think I'm probably right in that I can't see Fulham damaging the top 10 this season. I think we will be okay, hence said prediction, but I do think it's just going to be a little bit more of a squeeze in there, and so I'm just going to be a little bit safer and say 14th.
It's just going to be a few points between them, right?
Yeah. This is one win between 11th and 14th. I reckon.
Probably in some ways it would be a better thing to try and predict the amount of points, wouldn't it? Because that's actually for instance, I remember the difference where 11th last year and 11th the season before, there was a good 8 points difference in it. I mean, I think it'd be reasonable to assume that Fulham are going to be between 45 and 50.
I was going to say 47 points. Where does that leave you at?
I think they can get to 50, but
it's going to be fantastic. I've also said 11th, Peter, so I have gone with you. I just feel like we are that best of the rest. But I think that the top 10 is becoming so hard to break into, almost impossible now. I think the Big Six is becoming close to a Big 10. There's a couple of sides that flirt either way. Brighton, I think, are famously, it's dunno, could be 6th, could be 12th, but they're in amongst it. West Ham kind of broken into that 10 now. Newcastle are solidly there. Villa are there. But I think that Fulham can be the best of the rest. But equally, if Fulham finished 13th, I don't think that necessarily, it's just how the league falls, really, isn't it?
I can imagine Fulham being 11th in March and finishing 14th.
Yeah. I think I know sometimes there's a conversation about Europe, but for me, the top 8 is set. It's so that the financial advantage that those clubs have now, and that's throwing in Villa and Newcastle to the traditional 6. Is huge. Now, I am predicting that Chelsea will not have a good season, but that's my own personal opinion, and not just because of the squad.
There's your relegated 3 then.
I was looking at the odds. But they, in terms of finances and whatever, where they are, it's like Sammy says, they're set, and then there's a sort of a group of teams that every now and again might just have a swing in it. So West Ham, Brighton, and Fulham have tried to push themselves into that category, and that's to their immense credit. I think that's going to be hard. I don't think they'll do that this season. But
yeah. Right, next ones are top 3 scorers. In order, please.
Oh, in order?
Well, ideally. But yeah, Jack?
Smith Rowe.
Top.
Yeah. Muniz. Adama Traore.
Okay, Smith Rowe top scorer is... I mean, he did obviously get 10 in that season. Is that more that because you think Smith Rowe is going to be prolific, or because Muniz is going to struggle?
I think we're going to have 5 players in the mix from 11 to 8.
Okay.
I think we're really going to spread it.
Well, that would be great if that was the case.
That would be incredible. I can just see it, and I can see Muniz not having the same impact that he had last year, but still knocking around that sort of 9-10 mark. So... yeah, I think someone will outscore Rodrigo Muniz. I'm not sure who it is yet, but I'm gonna put a gamble on Smith Rowe, considering his goal scoring exploits in those 2 friendlies and the fact that it looks like he's been used in a slightly more offensive position than even I was expecting from him. So I'm going to stick him in there now. But I think the takeaway here is that I think someone outscores Rodrigo.
Okay, Peter?
I disagree. Muniz is going to be top scorer for Fulham for me. I just think the way the team's set, and Muniz is the number 9 now, playing most minutes. I think that's geared to him to become top scorer. But I did put Smith Rowe second. Like Jack says, I'm expecting him to have an impact. And then my third one is Harry Wilson. Just because Harry Wilson scores a lot of goals, like when you don't expect him. I don't know if he'll get the starts. We talked briefly about Adama Traore, who looks really good, and it's really exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. But Wilson's the kind of player who will come off the bench and score a consolation, and they just rack up.
Well, he got a good amount of goals last year, and I would say that he didn't really... I can't remember him starting that many games, and lots of the goals were like the 5th goal in a 5-0 win. He's that kind of player, isn't he, that does chalk them, and they're not any less of a goal when they are. I went for Muniz and Smith Rowe. I just went with a slightly feels like a bit like... doesn't feel right, but I went Raul as third.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because I just think like last season he actually still chipped in with a lot of goals. I think he'll be second fiddle, but I also can see moments this season where Muniz drops a bit out of form and Marco plays the carrot and stick and goes like, Rodrigo, you're not scored in 3. Raul's been great in training. He's going to get the start today just to give you a bit of a kick up the backside. And I could see Raul getting goals off the bench.
Christmas purple patch for Raul again.
I'd love it. I think this season I think Raul always made sense as a great person to have in the squad. I think it was always a bit daunting going into a season with him as your like leading goal scorer, the number 9, given his patchiness. But like he showed against Luton that like he can come on and get goals. I mean, I've only just about forgiven him for Brentford, but I think that Luton game actually I've restored some faith that actually like when he's confident and that he can still find the back of the net. So I've gone with those 3. Most assists. Gents, I feel like I maybe know where this is going, but...
I've got Alex Iwobi.
I was thinking of Iwobi. He was my sort of toss-up.
I've gone Alex Iwobi as well. Who have you gone for?
I've gone for Smith Rowe. I think he'll be high on both.
Wow.
I'm feeling the Smith Rowe. Let's say this and then he might pick up an injury.
Do you think you could do a 10 and 10?
No, I don't think Fulham will score enough goals for him to do it. Oh, they might.
I've gone Iwobi 13.
13.
13 assists for Alex Iwobi.
13.
I'm just feeling Alex Iwobi right now. Like,
that's a lot. That's a lot of assists.
Yeah, it's a big assist number.
That would be top. That would be very high in the whole Premier League.
Yeah, I think Iwobi is going to pull strings this season.
But he doesn't take set pieces, so he's gonna have to do them all from open play.
Yeah, I've just got a feeling about Alex.
I've gone for Iwobi as well. Nowhere near as high as 13. I was going to say about 8.
Yeah, I said 8 for Smith Rowe. I think that's.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's
all comps or is this just Premier League?
Whatever helps your numbers.
Yeah, I'd say Iwobi 13 all comps.
Okay, I think that I don't know if it's just recency bias, but obviously the 2 assists against Hoffenheim were both delicious.
I just think that like towards the end of the season, he started to come back into that side and like pull things together. Okay, like there was a lot of... I thought he was kind of sort of a lot of hockey assists and playing the pass before the assist. I can see him with players around him that he knows and like is feeling good alongside. That he can just start to be the guy that provides those passes. And some of the things that he's been doing in pre-season have been exceptional. So I'm really hot on Iwobi this season. I'm really excited about him.
Nice. Okay, so 2 for Iwobi, 1 for Smith Rowe on assists. Player of the season,
Alex
Peter.
Iwobi.
Oh, right, Jack's gone straight in, unsurprisingly.
It has to with that many assists.
If he's getting 13 assists, he will win Player of the Season. Peter?
I've went for Smith Rowe. I've gone all in on Smith Rowe with these. So,
okay, that's interesting.
Season,
I've gone Calvin Bassey.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sensible.
I just think Player of the Season tends to skew defensive.
For us, it has in the last
I don't know about
obviously.
other clubs, but with Fulham, I always think defensive players tend to just kind of get their flowers a little bit more in times Player of the Season because maybe they don't get the goals and the fan base really appreciates them and they save us numerous times. And Bassey could have been Player of the Season last year if he'd have played the whole year. I think like it was only because he started a bit late and then went to AFCON that just slightly limited him. But if he'd have replicated the form he showed over 38, I think he'd have really pushed Anthony Robinson for that very well-deserved award. So, yeah, for me, Bassey.
Nice, I like it.
Okay.
I like it.
Here's where it just gets fun and silly. Top 4. Now, actually, I wanted to ask you, I forgot to kind of caveat this, but this morning the news broke that City are going to face their hearing in January for the charges. Are we factoring this into our top 4? Because I genuinely think that's...
Well, I don't think it will be a points deduction if they get charged. I don't think they're just going to get hit with a 30-point deduction. I think they're going to be given like an outside of kind of, if you're being removed from the Premier League, if it all goes wrong for City, and to be honest, I don't think it will, but I don't think they're just going to be like, oh yeah, you were, endemically and systemically ruining the system, here's 10 points off. I can't see how that makes sense. So,
I mean, this is the Premier League, that wouldn't surprise me.
I suppose you couldn't, if they did get whatever they get, they couldn't be in the top 4, right? Like I say, it is that.
Oh, okay, but I think even where they finish, and then they might just be like, "No, you're out."
They would throw up lots of questions depending on how they do it.
All right, let's assume that City just get away with it scot-free.
I think they're going to get away with it.
Peter?
Yeah, so my top 4, City to win the league, asterisk notwithstanding. Arsenal second, Spurs third, Villa fourth.
Okay.
Villa fourth. Interesting.
I like that.
I've gone Arsenal, City, Liverpool, Spurs. I think it's time. I think they're ready, and if Arsenal get Mikel Merino through the door, I think they'll win the league.
I also think it's time, and I've gone Arsenal to win the league as well. City second, Spurs third, Liverpool fourth. I've partially gone Spurs third, Liverpool fourth, because I made a stupid drunken bet with my brother that Spurs would finish above Liverpool, and I've got like 40 quid riding on it. So I kind of need this to happen.
All Ange Postecoglou, aren't we?
Oh my God, I'm like, they're my second team this year, just so I can win some money off my brother. But yeah, I think it's Arsenal's time. I still believe that Arsenal maybe that a striker.
I don't play a short, but I think it's Mikel Merino.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the striker thing with them. I mean, yeah, I've gone City because they're just a machine, right?
It's a smart bet.
If City are in it at Christmas, they'll win it.
Yeah, that's kind of it.
If they're within 8 points.
Yeah, exactly.
I expect Spurs will be really good this year.
Yeah, me too.
Well. I think Villa, I can see it's been questioned, but Liverpool's change in style is massive.
Yeah.
Like, it's really big for the whole squad to go from Klopp to what Slopp's trying to get them to do. I think it's a transition season. I think they'll miss top 4.
I think last year was a transition season, and they were in title contention until March.
I suppose.
But they had the Klopp factor. I think pulling them through a lot of games in that title.
I see
run.
it. I think Villa might fall off a tad. Like, I love Emery, and I'm a big fan of what he's doing at Villa, but I just don't think that squad's strong enough to fight on all the fronts.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Especially with the 8 Champions League games as well, and then if they get through that, you're talking like a dozen extra games for them, and they have expanded their squad, and that's been really smart. But at the same time. I think top 4 is tough. This is always where it gets really interesting. Relegated 3. Jack?
I'm struggling. I have Leicester bottom. I think they will get points deduction.
Yeah, that's the.
And I think that they will finish bottom of the league. I think Southampton will finish like a point or 2 above them, and I think they'll probably concede the most Premier League goals in history. Because I can't see Russell Martin trying to adapt his style, and I think they're gonna really struggle. Martin, we're not doing this, but I think Russell Martin will be the first manager gone.
Yeah.
In the Premier League, and I'm still tossing up who comes 18th. You'll have to come back to me.
Still okay. Well, coming back to you, Peter. Have you decided on your?
Well, yeah, I've done the 3 that go up to go down, and I know that's boring, but I wouldn't have if Leicester didn't really have the points deduction. I think with them under Steve Cooper is actually it's actually the appointment they needed to make. Like, Maresca's style, great, and also he's got the Chelsea job. I'm not really sure about Maresca. They had a great squad in the Championship. Gets them into the Premier League. You need to adapt. We saw that with Fulham. On the basic level, Seri for Palhinha changed. You still had the basic tenets, but it was a change.
Yeah. I don't know who's going to score for Leicester.
Yeah,
Bobby Decker over Reed.
Yeah, I mean, but Bobby's going to get 8 because he always gets 8.
Patson Daka, here we go. But I can see Steve Cooper getting something out of them, but they'll still go down for me because I think the points deduction. Because the team I was weighing up which I've put them in the bottom 3 pretty much every year, is Brentford. Just expecting them to fall off. I just think, particularly now they've lost the I can't remember his name, the player they signed to replace
Igor
Thiago. Ivan Toney clearly is expecting his big move this summer, which isn't materialising. It's big. It's a big factor, and they've done really well to adapt every season and to get the better of sides around them. But I think it'll be tighter this year.
They've got there's some interesting links in there now. Like, it's one of those kind of weird ones where I was like, ooh, Brentford could go, and then the last couple of weeks I was like, oh, Jens Kajust, that's a real Brentford kind of player. So Yassine Adli, linked, and I was like, yeah, like that for them as well. Obviously Fabio's gone there, which hurts. And I was just like, they're just starting to pick up players in the right positions and start to pick up the kind of players who I think are going to fit. The links of like Norgard leaving, Jensen leaving have all quietened down. I just think they're going to be all right, sadly.
Yeah, I did write down Ipswich, Leicester, Brentford, but I can't tell if that is just wishful thinking on Brentford. And I genuinely am trying to be like objective here. I'm not just doing this because they're our rivals and it's kind of fun to imagine that they would get relegated. I can only go on what I saw, and I remember that 0-0 draw, they were so bad. Like, they stank, absolutely stank. Fulham weren't much better that day.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Like, you were just like, what is this? Like, they couldn't keep the ball. And Fulham, as much as we like did not take our chances that day, should have absolutely like blistered them. And like, if they did lose Tony, I'm going to stick with my guns. I will go Ipswich, Leicester, Brentford, but I also could just see it being Ipswich, Leicester, Southampton. And I don't know why I'm really backing Southampton.
I don't know why you're backing Southampton either. I think Southampton are the worst team coming up.
But then again, like you say Russell Martin did go, then you'd end up with a replacement, and we end up like, I don't know.
Yeah, but I could see them panicking, and I appointing the wrong person.
They've still got a good team, like a good crop of youngsters, and like.
I think the thing with them is style, right? That's a big question. They play such a possession-based style.
You know, we've seen
so
how hard it is to go from a Jukanovic to a Ranieri, right? So if they're going to need to switch the style out of Russell Martin's, ideas, then how quick are they going to be able to turn that around to actually make themselves? Well, we weren't able to, and that was a better team, I think. So, yeah, I don't know. I can't see it. I quite like St Mary's. So I kind of hope they do.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a fun trip if your predictions come right. They've got the worst defence in the league.
Oh, I think they're dreadful. Yeah, but yeah, I'm. Part of me thinks that Wolves might be in trouble. They've had a really good pre-season, and so like all of the chat about them is good. They've brought in some sensible players, but I wonder if just the kind of bounce they got after like proving people wrong last season, Gary O'Neill being like, "Yeah, I can do this," might just fall apart a little bit at this point.
They're quite static, I think. I don't see Gary O'Neill as being able to take them forward. He's quite.
And I wonder if everyone else bounces onwards. Basically, I think the Ipswich are going to put up a really good fight, and I want to back them to actually succeed in that fight. So I'm going to say Wolves, but I said that last year, and look, they're finished, so it is what it is.
Yeah. I guess the only team that I feel like lots of people will back to go down that we haven't really mentioned is Forest, because... But they've made some smart signings, and it's just...
they've sorted themselves out financially a little bit with a couple of big sales. I mean, spending that amount of money on Elliot Anderson is questionable, I think, at this point. But they brought in Jota Silva, who I just spent the last 3 weeks waxing lyrical about on this podcast and saying that Fulham should sign him. They signed Nikola Milenkovic, who I would have loved at the Cottage. I think they might be all right.
Yeah. All right. The final one, the most fun one, the Fulham... hot take. You'll be glad to know there's no predictions from me this season, Peter.
Why? They nearly came true.
Yeah, you've got to see what
do it again.
But is it a hot take
Fulham
anymore?
to win the Community Shield in 2025.
Now that is a spicy one.
That's a scorcher.
Peter?
I was hoping for a spicy one, but I've gone for the highest number of take-ons in the league.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see this.
So take-ons as in dribbles, like players going past, opposite numbers. Obviously, this is based a lot on how much Adama Traore is going to play. But he's looked good in pre-season. There are a lot of good players one-on-one in this team. And you factor in maybe Robinson can add a few.
Yeah.
Smith Rowe's going to pick up a few. Alex Iwobi's going to pick up a few. I can see Issa Diop and Calvin Bassey picking up a few.
Yeah.
Like the odd one or two per game.
Jeremy Doku is screaming at me.
Yeah, I know. That is the big factor. But I think they'll be up there. I think Fulham have lost the tackles numbers now with Polina going. They've got to replace with something. Obviously Robinson's got his interceptions, but take-ons. Go on, Adama.
Dribbling FC.
Dribbling FC.
Jack, what's your hot take?
Alex Iwobi does 20 plus combined goals and assists in all competitions.
20 plus?
Yeah.
I'll give you 20 quid if that comes true.
I've said it before. He's wearing the 17 again.
I'd love it.
This man is feeling himself in pre-season. He's wearing the 17, which is obviously a tribute to Joaquin. So that's nice. Look, I've got a lot of love for him at the moment, and I just think that he's going to be the guy for Fulham this season. I think he's going to pop up with a lot of random bits and bobs, like random pass before, but I think he's going to score a lot of weird goals, potentially in like one of the cup runs. I can see Iwobi scoring like 4 goals in a cup run, and then suddenly you're like, if I've already backed him to get 13 assists, then I only need him to score 4 Premier League goals. So I'm going for it.
All right. Mine is Fulham up for sale by summer 2025.
Ooh, okay.
Just...
Got a feeling, have you?
Well, I mean, if you just think about it logically, and like, the stand's going to be finished this season, apparently.
Yeah, I believe that when I see it.
And if our predictions are correct, then Fulham are probably going to be the stablest they've been in a long time in terms of our position in the league. You know, we've got a good squad, potentially a good manager. I think there's a reasonable argument to say that our stability is 99% based on Marco Silva being at the club, and just Marco leaving, I think, would make Fulham an instant candidate to be, much lower down the table. But anyway, you wouldn't get, as a business, much better opportunity to sell the club. You've got a beautiful stand, trophy asset. It's going to make money all round. You're fairly established now in the Premier League. You've been there for 3 years. You can prove that to a buyer. We're always going to be attractive to purchase because of the location, the history, and all of that. I just wonder, if you're the Khans, you would go like, is there a better time to get out? You could go out with your head held high. You would probably make a profit on what they initially paid for the club / all the money that they put into it.
Depends though. I mean, the Premier League continues to be this global league, right? And you're going into a World Cup in the United States in 2026. You want to be part of the Premier League, right? You want to be part of the biggest league in the world, and having that, I get the logic, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I think in terms of what it is, there's also that element of, it's not just a seat at the table at the NFL table, but they're sitting alongside, the big players that run Arsenal and Liverpool, etc., who also have these American franchises, and it's another opportunity to sit around the table and be like, my voice is important, because you see me not only there, you see me here. Like, I am a player in this game.
I just don't know if that, and I thought it was interesting watching that, that video, which we slightly criticised, but Shahid Khan talking to, I think it was a business channel, Bloomberg, that was it. And I just feel like there'll be so many offers, not just from the obvious ones, like maybe like the Amani royal family or something, but the amount of celebrities and high profile Americans that want a slice of that pie.
Yeah, they might sell a bit of Fulham.
Maybe it's
I think they might sell a minority share.
Yeah, I can see that. But I mean, in terms of if you take the Bloomberg thing and take what they've announced in Jacksonville, like a massive regeneration again, huge investment. And if either of the two clubs or teams that they own, that would be the team I think maybe they would give up on if they couldn't get them to London or whatever.
This is it. I think they might sell the Jags and basically be the face of a London NFL franchise.
But but that kind of investment in Jacksonville that
they have to be. Yeah.
With a lease that keeps them there for 20, 30 years.
I'm not saying move the Jags. I'm saying as in someone else might come up and they'll be like, right, we'll do London, sell the Jags, move to London, keep Fulham in the background. If that would happen, I think that's more likely.
That's the only kind of, I think, when I was thinking about this, the spanner in my plan is their whole kind of, I think Shahid wants to be that person if there's a London NFL franchise, and I think he sees Fulham as important.
I don't see it as
happening.
Needing to make a profit. I just don't think that's a factor. I think status is more important, and owning it and having the asset and enjoying it. So.
I obviously last year predicted Carabao Cup final, which was much more fun than Fulham being up for sale. Any hunches on the cups, Jack?
Yeah, I think we'll go deep again in one of them. I'm not sure. And to be honest, I think it's wild to Community Shield. Yeah, so we're winning the FA Cup. But I think we will give the cups another good run. I think that's also part of when you predict 14th, I'm a bit like, well, Fulham probably can afford to kind of miss a few league games and actually throw some eggs into baskets in terms of the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, because there's something there, right, that they can kind of tangibly cling on to. I'm not going to go so far to say I think we'll get to Wembley this season, but it wouldn't shock me either.
Yeah, I'm hopeful again. I think part of the reason why the Carabao was taken so seriously last year. I think a lot of it depends on the start. I think if you're fighting relegation and we have a horrendous start and we're up against it, then you can kiss it goodbye because
Shot the game to Oxford United.
Yeah, but I think if Fulham do make a good start and we've got some breathing room,
Momentum.
that we did last year, then yeah, no reason. And I do believe that the Carabao is the competition that we should really go all in on, because I do think that is the one where you can potentially make a run. And last year was so iconic. It was so fun. I'd just like a few more home ties. I think that would be the only thing. Like a few fewer trips to Liverpool would be ideal if we are to do a cup run this year. That'll do for the predictions. We'll lock them in a box. We'll come back to them in May, see how they do.
Iwobi's been injured for 9 months. I look really stupid.
Touch wood that doesn't happen. And yeah, I think just really excited for this season to get underway, Jack. And I don't know. I'm just hoping this wave of optimism continues, and this time next week I'm not there going like, well, why were we so smiley and happy this time last week?
Yeah, no, I get it. I think that also it's probably best not to overreact on Manchester United, whatever happens. Like, there are big games in this opening segment, as we've said. I don't think United is the one that's going to define this season. Obviously, it would be great to get off to a winning start, but what happens in August often doesn't affect what happens in May. I think we want to get off to a start where we look like impressive. We're able to see that kind of link and vitality in the team. I'm not hugely worried without being, obviously, I will be affected by it in terms of emotionally, but I'm not hugely worried about where this result goes on Friday, because I think that there is just a weirdness about the opening game of the season, Friday night, Sky, all of it, that is almost like you can take this out and put it in a basket in isolation. It doesn't necessarily reflect what Fulham are going to be like when we rock up a week later against Leicester at the Cottage. So I'm excited. I'm wary. I really think we need to get these two positional players that we're missing right. I still think we need 2 in the midfield, I'll be honest, but I think it's very important that these signings are right. And if so, and if we get to the end of this transfer window and those signings are correct, I think there's plenty to look forward to this season.
Yeah, and Peter, no doubt Fulham will be keeping you on your toes this year. Are you heading up to Old Trafford?
I am, yes. Yeah,
okay.
Looking forward to that. It's
your annual pilgrimage.
Yes, exactly. Couldn't miss that one. It's probably the game that stands out the most because of how emotionally fraught they've been the last couple of seasons. I'm with Jack a little bit. I think performances is what's interesting. You know, when Fulham came up and played against Liverpool, the performance was enough to be like, yeah this is what we're going to get.
We're going to compete.
I'm more concerned, or I think it'll be more the games that will be, I won't say more indicative, but yeah, will probably set the stall will be the games afterwards, Ipswich and Leicester. Is it Ipswich's first home game, or is it
second home game? They open against Liverpool. Yeah.
That's right.
Haven't they got Liverpool City and then Fulham?
Yes,
they were
that's
like,
right.
I saw an Ipswich fan describe it as their first winnable game.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, absolutely correct.
Completely reasonable.
So fair. No, it wasn't a criticism. Like, so fair enough. And I was like, oh, that's so not where we want to be.
No, that's what I mean.
That is a bit of a sticky one when you actually can.
When you place the context of that, you start. That's the worry. And if you lose to United, then you struggle with those.
If they get battered like 5-0 in each of their openers, then you'd hope that Fulham are able to then take advantage of that frailty.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much, gents. Always, I was going to say one of my favourite pods of the year. This is my favourite pod of the year every season. That pre-season, like adrenaline, just like what's going to happen. And
everything is possible.
I know. I just love the beginning of the season. Love doing this podcast with you. So, Pete, thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me.
And Jack, thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. Always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks to the Half Moon for hosting us today, and we will be back Sunday, Monday at some point. I'm hosting this one, looking back at everything that happens at United. So if you're heading up to Manchester, safe travels, and wherever you're watching as well, enjoy the game. Come on, you Whites.
You Whites.